Hello, my little explorers. In this chapter, we will be learning about the temperature zones. Now, before we talk about temperature zones and about how the climate difference from one place to another place in the world, let us first of all understand the basic difference between weather and climate. What happens is that oftentimes we make a mistake. We say that today the climate is very nice, or the weather of Himachal Pradesh is very good. So there is a difference between weather and climate. What you need to understand is that weather of a place, it includes the changes in temperature, air pressure, rain and wind conditions. It could change within a very short span of time or daily. Like the weather today can be different than the weather that was yesterday. For example, today it might be raining outside, but yesterday it must be sunny and very hot, and tomorrow it can be again very sunny or it might be rainy. So the weather can change from hour to hour or day to day basis. Okay, whereas the climate of a place or a region is the weather of that place or region over a long period of time. Now if I give you an example of my city, Gandhidham, so the climate of Gandhidham is generally very hot, or it is not very cold over here. We do not see any snowfall here over here. So if somebody asks me what is the climate of Gandhidham, so I'll say it is hot. But if somebody asks me what is the weather today, so today it was raining a few hours back, so I would say that today the weather is overcast, or it is cloudy, or it is raining. So this is the difference between weather or climate. Let me again try to explain this difference to you in detail. Weather of a particular place is of a long time, is of a long particular time, is called climate. Short term condition of a particular place is called weather. Climate is measured over a long period of time, whereas the weather is measured over a short period of time. Weather is affected by climate is affected by the climate system as well as altitude and latitude. We will be learning about this more. Weather on the other hand is affected by temperature, air pressure, moisture, etc. uh, Climate is forecasted by collective weather statistics over a long period of time, and weather is forecasted by collecting meteorological data. All right, so let us move on to the next topic. Now, the climate of any region is greatly influenced by the following things: latitude, where the place is located, how far is it from the equator; elevation or altitude, that means is it on a mountain or is it on a plain ground; how high is the place or how low is the place, that also affects the climate, not the weather. Okay, always remember, it will affect the climate. Distance from a large body of water, how far are you from a large body of water? For example, my city is quite close to sea. Sea is a large body of water, so this is also how you calculate. Now, prevailing winds, how windy it is. So normally it is not very windy in Gandhidham, so it is moderate winds. Let us understand all of these factors one by one. Now first is latitude, or the distance from the equator. Now, different latitudes receive different amounts of heat from the sun. The further away a place is from the equator, the less heat it receives. I will show you this with a diagram also. Another important factor that has a direct impact on the heating of the earth is length of the day. The longer a day lasts, the more time there is for the earth to absorb energy from the sun. Thus, longer days typically result in warmer days, while shorter days result in cooler days. Now, there is a very interesting fact that places that are near the equator, they experience summer almost throughout the year. In these places, it is hot and the days are long. Now what? Let me try to explain this to you through a couple of diagrams. Now see, this is sun. The sun's rays is normally generally falling very much on the equator, directly on the equator. So the area near equator, it receives sunlight most of the time in most of the year. Here the days are also quite long. So that's the reason this is the comparatively hotter zone. So we will learn about the zones ahead, but it is also called tropical zone or hot zone. You must have remembered Tropic of Cancer or Tropic of Capricorn. Then these places, the temperate zone, it receives less sunlight directly. That's why it is relatively cooler. So they are called temperate zones. And the polar caps, they receive a very little sunlight. So they are called frigid zones. So that's why there is snow all year round. Let me show you another diagram to explain this even more clearly to you. See, this is the sun. The direct sunlight is coming on torrid zone. Then low angle sunlight is coming on the temperate zone, and the frigid zone, it is receiving the least amount of sunlight. So you will see snow all throughout the year. So this is how the distance from the equator. Now, which place is very far from the equator? Obviously, North Pole or South Pole. It is extreme distant from the equator. So that's why they are very cold. Now, this place, if I take a place over here, this is quite near to the equator. So it is hot. This place is a little further away from the equator, so it is little cooler. It is not as cold as the North Pole or South Pole, but it is little cooler than being on the equator. So a distance from the equator can have a big impact on the climate of the place. Notice I'm saying climate, I'm not saying weather. Altitude. The air around us is not heated directly by the sun rays. Instead, the sun's rays heat the earth and the earth heats the air. So normally our air is not heated by the sun. The sun is heating the earth and the earth heats the air. As we go to the higher altitudes, the amount of heat received from the earth's surface decreases, and so it is cooler at higher altitudes. Now what I'm trying to say over here is that this cloud or this air is not heated directly by the sun. Sun heats up the ground. So if you are very close to the ground, if you are very near to the ground, you will feel extreme heat. But when you move away from the ground, when you try to climb up from the ground, you will experience cooler air. That's why you must have noticed, like if you go on a mountain, like if you go to a place like Mount Abu, or if you go to a place like Dalhousie, if you go to a place like Nainital, which is above ground. So as you climb, as your car goes above the mountain, or if you walk above the mountain, you will start feeling colder and colder and colder. Like when you go to Lonavala, so Bombay might be hot, but when you climb, when your car goes up the mountains and as you enter Lonavala, you would be feeling a little cooler. The air gets a little cooler. That is because the air is moving away from the surface of the earth. So this is how altitude plays a role in the temperature. Next important factor is distance from a water body. Now, coastal areas have a lower temperature than the areas which are inland. Inland means coastal areas means places which are near the sea. Like for example, Mandvi is a coastal town. It is located near the sea. Or if you talk about Goa, so Goa is a coastal place. It is located on the sea. Whereas there are places that are inland which are far away from the sea. For example, New Delhi. Now, New Delhi is located, there is no big sea near New Delhi. Or you may talk about Indore or Jaipur. These places are very far away from the sea, so they are located inland. As the land heats up, the air above it rises up. We just saw that. Cool breezes from the sea flow to take this place, cooling the land. So what happens is that if your place is located near the sea, the cool breeze from the sea will blow and it will cool down the area. So that's the reason places which are located near the sea are comparatively cooler. In winter, the sea breezes bring warmth. As a result, coastal areas rarely experience extreme heat or cold while inland areas do. Now I'll explain this to you by an example. We live in a place called Gandhidham. Gandhidham is comparatively close to the sea. We have Kandla on one side, on the other side we have Mandvi. That's the reason the temperature in Gandhidham remains more or less constant throughout the year. We do not feel extreme cold like it is like we have got snowfall or something like that, or we do not feel extreme hot also, like the temperature here doesn't go to 50 degrees, 55 degrees. So more or less the temperature in Gandhidham remains between 25 degrees to 45 degrees all throughout the year. So this is how the temperature in coastal areas does not experience extreme heat or extreme cold. While places like Delhi, now I told you New Delhi is an inland city. So in winter it feels very cold, very 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 cold. It's like freezing cold. It's there in winter, and in summer it is comparatively very hot. So that's why it experiences extreme temperature. Winds. Now winds greatly affect the climate of a particular place depending on their place of origin. Winds blowing from the sea are cool, while those blowing from the deserts are hot during the day. Now, you must have heard of a term called Loo. Loo is a Hindi word. That means it's a warm breeze that blows from the desert. So, if you are located near a desert, you will get hot winds. While if you are located near a sea, you will get cold winds. So that's why winds also play a very important role. Now, the temperature zones. The Earth is the only living planet in the entire solar system because of the favorable temperature conditions that prevail here. However, the temperature of a place depends on the amount of heat it receives from the sun. The heat is not uniformly distributed over the surface of the Earth. While some places are hot, others are extremely cold. I showed this diagram to you that the sun rays are scattered. They are not coming on one place all the time. So that's the reason the temperature zones are different. The amount of heat received by the surface of the earth depends on the angle at which rays of the sun fall on that surface. So this angle of the sun ray, it affects the heating of the earth. Now the difference of temperature is due to the shape of the earth as well as the difference in angle of sun rays. Now earth, as you know, is spherical shape. It is not perfectly round or square. It is like shaped like a sphere. See, so that is why it affects. We all know that at noon the temperature is very high and it is very hot. What is the hottest time during the day? So afternoon, 12 o'clock, 1 o'clock, you will feel a lot of heat. This is primarily because the sun's rays fall almost vertically on the surface. When we go for a walk in the morning or evening, we feel the temperature is very mild. It is because the sun rays are falling on the earth at an inclined angle. That's why at night it gets little cooler, or in the early morning it is little cooler. The surface of the earth is divided into different heat zones based on intensity of heat. So let me show you these zones. So we have a torrid zone, we have temperate zones, and we have frigid zones. So let us try and understand these zones. The region between the Tropic of Cancer and the Tropic of Capricorn is known as torrid zone or hot zone. The torrid zone extends over both the northern and southern hemisphere. It is also called the tropical zone. The sun's rays fall vertically over this surface almost throughout the year. There is not much variation in the climate throughout the year. So see this between Tropic of Cancer. Let me show you this image. So between Tropic of Cancer and Tropic of Capricorn, this is tropical zone or torrid zone. Here the sunlight falls directly all throughout the year. So there is not much variation in the temperature. As you know, India, let me show you this map. Probably you'll get an idea. See, India falls in the tropical zone. That's why there is not extreme temperature variation over here. Now, next, the point which we have to see is the temperate zone. The temperate zone is the region between Tropic of Cancer and the Arctic Circle in the northern hemisphere, and Tropic of Capricorn and Antarctic Circle in the southern hemisphere. They are also known as temperate zones. This zone experiences mild temperature as the sun's rays fall on the earth's surface at an angle throughout the year. The days are longer during the summer months, while the nights are longer in the winter months. Now let me show you temperate zone. So see, between Tropic of Cancer and the Arctic Circle in the north, it is not temperate zone, and Tropic of Capricorn and the Antarctic Circle is southern temperate zone. Let me show you the other image also. See, you can see the temperate zone between Cancer and Arctic Circle, Capricorn and Antarctic Circle. These are temperate zone. So now India is situated entirely in the northern hemisphere. The lower half of the subcontinent lies in the torrid zone and the rest in the temperate zone. Now if you see the Indian map, so India is located entirely in the tropical zone, and this is how the temperature is maintained in India. Now the frigid zone. The region between the Arctic Circle and the North Pole in the northern hemisphere and between the Antarctic Circle and the South Pole in the southern hemisphere is known as frigid zone. The sun's rays fall at a sharp angle throughout the year. This makes a frigid zone extremely cold all through the year. So this is the frigid zone. Here it is snow all year long because it is always cold. So this is the frigid zone. Okay. Now, did you know that the seasons are reversed between two hemispheres? For example, if it is winter in northern hemisphere, it is summer in southern hemisphere. Now, let me show this to you practically by an example. Now, in India, it is summer right now. So, the current temperature in Delhi, which is a city in India, as you know, is 32 degrees. Okay, 32 degrees Celsius is the temperature in India. You know what is the temperature in Australia, which is in southern hemisphere? So the temperature in Canberra, which is the capital of Australia, is right now 7 degrees. So it is very cold in Australia. So it is summer here in India in northern hemisphere. In southern hemisphere, it is winter right now. So this is how the temperature is changing.